Hello everyone, this is your instructor Ayush and I welcome you all to the Valiant Gladiators channel. And today we will be discussing the match between Grandmaster Nepomniachtchi from Russia versus Vidit Gujrathi from India. So this is the match from the Candidates event which we have taken, and basically Candidates tournament is one of the prestigious tournament which gives a chance to the top players to challenge the world chess champion. So the person who becomes the champion of this particular event will be challenging the world champion Ding Liren in the coming months. And let's see how did the match went. So Nepomniachtchi, who was playing with the white pieces, started out with the move pawn to e4. Vidit Gujrathi, who just lost his previous round against Pragg, played the move pawn to e5. Nepo played knight f3, Vidit played knight to c6. Nepo played bishop to b5, entering to the Spanish opening, to which Vidit, being a Kramnik fan, played the move knight f6, showcasing his Berlin defense in this particular tournament. Earlier, he definitely showed some great preparation skills against Nakamura and defeated him within the opening itself. And now let's see if Mr. Nepo is ready for Vidit's prep. Nepo played castle in the match, so offering a free pawn to the Vidit on the center. Vidit very happily accepts that pawn on the e4 square. The last time Vidit played against Nakamura actually defended that pawn by playing pawn to d3. But Nepo decides to play one of the main variation, that is castle in the game. Knight takes e4, and now Nepo played the move pawn to d4, immediately attacking in the center. So basically, this is one of the things which we should also remember, is that if our opponent's king is still in the center, in order to weaken its position, you have to try to open up the game. If the game gets opened up, definitely the king will be in trouble. So Nepo is trying to do the same thing. But Vidit comes out with a counter-attacking move, attacking the bishop. And in order to save the bishop, Nepo exchanges the bishop for the knight. Pawn takes bishop, and now he takes a pawn on the e5 square, attacks the knight. The knight gets away to the f5 square, and after the exchange of queens, we have reached to the standard Berlin wall structure. So this structure which black have implemented with its pawn and with the bishop pair is called as the standard Berlin wall. The reason it's called as Berlin wall, Berlin wall, because as you know the story of the Germans earlier created the Berlin Wall for the defensive purpose and to stop their enemy from entering their zone. So same goes here as well. Black basically builds a very strong defensive structure which most of the time leads to a drawish endgame. So Vidit wants to play a very solid match by playing this Berlin opening. Nepo played the move knight c3. There are various other moves which have been seen played as well. One is bishop g5, one is bishop f4. The other ones are pawn to c3, others ones and also pawn h3. But Nepo preferred developing the knight first to the c3 square. Vidit simply played bishop to d7, developing the bishop in this particular fashion, in which later the king will be going to the its home on the queen side. To which Nepo played pawn to h3. Vidit played pawn to h6. Basically, Vidit's idea is to build up an attack onto the king's side. To which Nepo played an aggressive move pawn to g4, pushing the knight back. And when the knight goes back, and now Nepo played the move knight h2. So knight h2 is one of the moves which is not very much have been played in past few years. So this move we can consider that Nepo actually prepared this against Vidit. And what's the idea of this move? Basically, while our Grandmaster Vishy Anand was watching this game live, he actually mentioned that basically the main idea which Nepo can implement is to actually bring his king to the g3 square and stop Vidit's pawn storm attack. So that is one of the things which Vishy pointed out, and it actually came into implementation as well. Vidit played pawn to g5. He could have played pawn to h5 as well, but I guess Nepo was prepared with the move bishop to g5. The idea is if Vidit takes the pawn, then he can take the pawn back. But this was not seen in the game. Vidit played the move pawn to g5, to which Nepo striked on the king's side, opening up the game by playing pawn to f4. Pawn takes pawn, bishop takes pawn, bishop comes to the e6 square, bringing the bishop to a more active square, controlling more number of squares on the center and preparing the knight to jump to the d5 square as well. Vidit against Vidit bishop d6 move, Nepo played the move knight to e4, centralizing the knight, planning to maybe move the knight further to the f6 square, and that's the thing. Okay, Vidit simply played pawn to b6, stopping even the movement of the knight on the c5 square, and as I said earlier, making a room for the king to escape. The other knight joins in, pawn to c5, building a very strong pawn chain on the queen side by Vidit, knight f6 by Nepo, king goes to c8, king goes to safety, and now the king march start, which earlier Vishayanan pointed out. King goes to b7, king goes to c3, giving a very strong commanding position to these two pawns. Pawn goes to a5. Vidit's now idea is to actually advance a pawn so that later he can do a rook lift from the queen side and get involved towards the other side of the board. Okay, Nepo played pawn to a3, pawn to a4, stopping the idea of pawn to b4. Rook goes to d1, controlling this open file by Nepo, to which Vidit played knight c6, keeping the positioning of the knight in a very solid structure and further planning to maybe bring the knight to the d4 square and something like that. To which Nepo responded with the move pawn to c3, stopping the knight from coming to the d4 square and also controlling some crucial square, to which Vidit responded bishop e7. So this whole game is about the good maneuvering of the pieces. So the players who are able to maneuver their pieces to one of the most ideal squares will be the one who will be having the massive advantage. To which Nepo played the move knight to h4, bringing the knight to the edge of the board, and further plan could be to have the knight on the f5 square later. To which Vidit played a very interesting move, that is h5. There is a trick to it, that is this pawn can't be taken right now with this pawn. The reason is, if Nepo tries to take the pawn on h5, then Vidit will be trapping his opponent with this idea, that is he will take the knight, then after Nepo takes the bishop, then Vidit can simply take the pawn on the h5 square, and when the knight tries to escape, something like this, then he can strike with his other rook with a check again, and when the king goes to f2 and after rook f5, it's white is in a very tough state right now. So but fortunately this did not happen for Nepo. Nepo played the right move against pawn h5, that is against pawn h5 Nepo played the move pawn to g5, building a very strong commanding structure towards the knight, to which Vidit played the move rook to a5. And now you can see the beauty of the pieces, how the players are actually maneuvering their pieces. The knight is getting position to a good places, the rook is planning to come up from the other side and maybe putting pressure on the b2 pawn. So that's the idea, that's the game plan which a very kind of theoretical opening like Berlin opening can lead to. Okay, Nepo play rook to e1, rook goes to b2, putting pressure on the pawn. Nepo simply plays a backward move with the bishop, defends the pawn. Rook goes to the b3 square, putting more pressure towards this side of the game and further planning pawn to b5 and then pawn to b4, to which Nepo played a more aggressive move, going all in towards the attack on the king side, played pawn to g6, and now in a little tough state. He can't actually take the knight, because if he tries to take the knight, he will be getting into trouble, because after pawn takes a bishop, and if he tries to take the pawn right now, then this bishop will be hanging basically, and if he tries to play something else like bishop to d7, then Vidit can simply take the pawn on f7, and this pawn will be a big burden for Vidit, because after rook e7, knight e7, pawn takes knight, it's just game over. So due to that fact, Vidit was not able to take the knight. He was forced to take the pawn here, and after that Nepo strike back with a fork, attack to the rook and attack to the bishop at the same time, to which he played the move rook to d8, and luckily Vidit was having the knight on c6 defending the bishop. So when Nepo captured his bishop, Vidit captured it back. Knight takes a free pawn, rook gives a check, Nepo blocks it, rook gets exchange, Vidit takes away the pawn and equalizes the number of points. Pawn goes to d6. This is a very difficult pawn to stop for Vidit right now. Vidit on the other side tries to do counter attacks and plays pawn to b5. Nepo plays bishop to g5, attacking the knight. The knight goes to the d5 square, pawn marches front and is just only 1 square away from becoming a queen, and Vidit is now thinking, should he sacrifice his knight right now or not? But Vidit says, no, let me stop that pawn by using the bishop, and if the pawn tries to promote to a queen, which Nepo did not do that, and that is a good thing, because if he tries to do that, then Vidit can actually wind up all the pawns on the other side, and it will be pretty not possible for Nepo to actually stop Vidit's pawn from their minor pieces. So for that reason, Nepo waited here for a second and played the move rook to d1, attacking the knight. And this was a critical position of the complete match, where Vidit did a mistake by playing the move king to c6, defending the knight with the king. But instead, what should he have done? He should have defended the knight using the bishop. Now the idea like rook takes t5 is not working, because bishop can take the rook with a check and later can stop the pawn from becoming a queen. And if Vidit tries to deflect the king to a safer square, for example king g3, now Nepo, okay, now if Nepo tries to play a safer move like king to the g3 square, then Vidit can simply move his knight to the b6 square to the safety, and later he's targeting the b2 pawn as well. But unfortunately, Vidit played king to c6, and after this move, it was king to e4 in the match. The king advances in the game, attacks a knight, and after the bishop counter-attacks a knight, Nepo simply takes Vidit's knight, Vidit takes Nepo's knight, and in this position, Nepo played the classical backward move with one of the pieces to secure the game to a victory. So I will request everyone who are watching to take a few seconds and evaluate what move really helped Nepo to secure the match in his favor. So the move which Nepo played, the classical bishop move, was bishop to the c1 square, locking the rook completely on the queen side. And now this rook is stuck. Basically, the idea of bishop c1 is not only to lock the rook, but also stopping Vidit from taking the pawn on the b2 square. And after this, Vidit gave a check, king advances, Vidit tries his best to counter-attack, but king still advances and attacks the bishop. Vidit can't take the rook because Nepo will take his bishop and this pawn will be unstoppable. So Vidit defended his bishop, rook attacks the bishop, pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn, bishop goes to d7, and now Nepo with his final few move, that is king to f7, secure the victory, because now the idea of rook takes bishop and then promoting this pawn to a queen is pretty difficult to stop. So in this current position, Vidit actually resigned the match, and it was Nepo who outplayed Vidit against his Berlin wall, and by breaking the wall, Nepo managed to secure the victory. And with this victory, Nepo is currently leading the tournament with 3 points out of 4, and our from India, the top GM, that is Gujrathi, is actually trailing behind Nepo and having 2.5 points out of 4. But the tournament is still not over. We never know what can happen and who can become the champion. So stay tuned in this channel, and in the coming days, definitely we will be analyzing more few matches. Bye bye, take care, and see you soon.